Yep. Is this finally? This makes me happy. You want to know why this makes me happy? Goddamn Fortnite is crumbling. It's cracking. It's slowly cracking, and I'm hoping it falls, to be honest, because literally Fortnite did irreparable damage through the entire gaming scene. They actually did. They are the sole cause of why Call of Duty is the way how it is, why we're getting so much like what is it, what are those games called or so, the online slop games or so, like the games that are trying to basically get that piece of the pie of Fortnite, but a lot of them has failed miserably, while others did succeed, right, to some degree, right? Some other ones have failed miserably. We just get constantly just get constant just slop fest afterwards. They're trying to like literally, they're trying to get that piece of the pie. And I'm not traveling with Co will make me carry all of her clothes she's buying day one. Yeah, I'm gonna make your mama do the too. No. Keep it afloat. Fortnite is the tumbler. It's containment. Don't let it run with the two other games. No, fucking kill Fortnite. Fortnite killed everything. That's the only reason why the gaming scene has been following and trying to chase the trend or so. Because remember what happened with Overwatch. Overwatch was also trying to capture the trend for Fortnite. Same thing for Call of Duty. They were doing the same thing or so when World War was coming out or so. The one for a couple of years back or so. Not the old one. The not from Treyarch. The one from a couple of years ago. They were also like wanted to chase that specific trend as well. And well, Lord of Behold, seems to be crumbling down right now at the moment with
I
Fortnite.
can't believe it's actually happening. Fortnite has fallen. The mythical dragon that the games industry has been chasing
Let's
for the better part of a
go!
decade, the success that they have been trying to emulate pretty much across the entire games industry, is in so much trouble that their CEO came out and flat out said, we are losing players, we are losing money, we need to lay off 1,000 people, and we still need an additional $500 million in cost savings. Good God. I don't think people understand just how valuable it is for the games industry to realize that this game is mortal, that it bleeds just like everything else. And the problems that Epic is having.
You guys have no idea how long I've been waiting for this news to come out for a long time. Thank you for the gifted or so. I've been literally been waiting for this for such a long time. I feel so happy. I feel very happy right now.
The problems that Fortnite is having is going to send a shockwave across the industry. Now,
You want to know something? That's also a part of it too. The people who like kind of like basically grew up with Fortnite grew out of it, right? They probably grew out of Fortnite. Maybe they're adults now, but they don't have kids because they can't afford kids because how the economy is. And that means their kids can't play Fortnite to continue the cycle. You see, that could also be part of the equation as well, specifically on this, because if they're losing players,
be fair, the problems that they're going through, the loss of players that Fortnite is seeing, well, it's a lot. Believe me, you guys are going to be pretty shocked by
how
this.
much is it?
It's not the only part of their problem. The issues that they're suffering from are the same ones that are.
Plus, also at the same time, that game pays so much money for those IPs. I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Fortnite is an IP nightmare because the amount of like IPs there are in those games. I assume they have to pay a good amount or so for them to keep them in the game for a certain amount. I assume so. Because I'm taking like because I'm kind of like learning because of Square Enix with Disney trying to work with one another so they can use the Disney IP properties into the Kingdom Hearts. And also the other one is from what is it, Ultimate Super Smash Bros, where they have basically, you got Solid Snake, you got Bayonetta, you got what is it, not Bomberman, it's the what's the name of those people, it's the two twins or so with the mallet and everything. Yeah, you got Sora as well. Who else do you have in that? Mega Man. You got Mega Man. You also have, what is it? Ah, there you go. That's what they're called, the Ice Climbers. I'm trying to remember their names specifically off the top of my head. Oh, they have what's the name? What's the name of that one game? Chrono? No. That one JRPG game with that blonde dude with the red sword. I forgot his name or so. Those Fortnite is collabing with too many IPs and maintaining those licenses cause them to rotate. They rotate them in the shop. Yeah, that is also true. It is a very nightmare because they had because what they bring in like anime as well. They brought in Hololive characters. They brought in like Miku. They brought in Rick and Morty. They brought in Family Guy. They brought in Simpsons. When you start looking at everything, they even brought in what's the name? Oh fuck, what's the name of those two dudes or so that they brought in Call of Duty? It's like a '90s cartoon.
Basically plaguing all of the Western games industry, where they have too many employees. They are spending way too much money. They're
Yeah,
not
Beavis and
paying attention
Butthead.
to the audience that they already have. And because of that, they put themselves into a weakened position where even just the slightest change in temperature is a crisis to these guys. So today, we're going to be talking about how much trouble Fortnite and Epic are in right now, what this actually means for the games industry, and also how some analysts are saying that really
If they would have improved their Epic launcher, they would have got that revenue in from passive revenue income to keep, funding Fortnite. But since, Steam is the more better platform when it comes to buying games and all this other stuff, why would you use the Epic launcher over the Steam one? While the Epic one barely gets any updates on their launcher. So that means they're not really generating much passive revenue income.
it's Eastern games at fault. Sometimes it pays to be right. But before that, a bit of a confessional. Today's video is sponsored by Helix Mattress, and
Oh
I have
my
been
god!
insanely excited to talk about this.
Wow.
Mostly
Okay,
because
okay.
I'm a
I have,
terrible sleeper.
for me
Historically, I've
personally,
always had a
I
problem
got
with
a
it. I
pretty
run
good
hot
crazy
as
bed.
hell,
I'm
so I have
just saying. I
fans
got a
and
memory foam
AC
bed,
and all. And also, thank you to Helix for fixing my sleep. I never thought I'd ever be around to be able to make this video. Fortnite has been the games industry's golden child for nearly a decade now. It's largely
I
responsible.
hated this fucking game. Fuck Fortnite, dude. Fortnite ruined the gaming scene. Straight up, I'm gonna say it here. Fortnite ruined everything that was so good about gaming. Now they all started chasing the trend or so what Fortnite did. I am so happy that they're finally getting the repercussion that they needed or so for this constant shit that they kept doing with the game. I'm so happy. I have not touched the game, never played the game. I will never play this game. I am so happy that they are actually like getting their butts kicked or so. Like now it's like it's cracking or so. Their golden pillar or so is starting to crack now.
For the live service boom, for the rise of battle royales, and honestly, I think it makes perfect sense. Why? Because since launch, Fortnite has reportedly made over $42 billion. It's pulled in over 650
Oh yeah,
million
that's true.
registered
Yeah, they
players
got
and still
licensing for
has around
songs as well.
110 active players just reported in 2026. It earns more than GTA 5 and Minecraft combined, and it averages around 14 million peak concurrent players day to day. To put that into perspective, that's basically like half of the existing player base on Steam at a given time, all
That's
piling into
crazy.
one game at once. Fortnite has launched careers for content creators. It helped make one of the biggest streams.
Oh yeah, I forgot they have Hollywood people in this game too as well. I forgot they got like Ariana Grande. They got like what's the name of that one girl with the green hair again? That was saying that like, that she built her house on top of like Native American land. I forgot what the fuck her name is, to be honest.
In gaming history possible, with over 600,000 people turning
Oh
in
yeah,
to
they got
watch
Kim
Drake
K
and Ninja
too.
play back in 2021. It blurred the lines between gaming and pop culture with crossovers in damn near every
Yeah,
corner of
Billie
media, from
Eilish.
celebrities to movies to other games as well. It pioneered the virtual concerts as well, with Travis Scott pulling.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember this Travis Scott concert too as well. I saw it on YouTube. Well, one of the YouTubers I follow, which was the Vanos crew, I think it was like Delirious or so that was doing this.
in over 12 million players and opening the door to even more events after that throughout the years. Now, I've never really brought this up, and some of you guys are probably going to be surprised by this, but while I have a lot of criticisms for Epic as a company, I have always held a lot of respect for Fortnite because as a platform, they just kept pioneering. They kept doing things.
I don't like. I have somewhat, but for me specifically. Hey, thank you for the 5 gifted. For me specifically, I never liked Fortnite because they destroyed the gaming scene. The way how the gaming scene was, and all of the other companies started chasing them. The only reason why is because we had the leader of from the Overwatch from Blizzard or so talked about it, and then you had the leaders or so talking about it literally in Call of Duty World War, or whatever the fuck the name of that one specific gamer so that came out a few years that did a World War II settings or World War One settings. I don't fucking know. That one specifically, and then you have the rest that follow, which was Apex Legends as well, and then you also have Call of Duty who made Warzone. So
That were experimental. They just kept evolving. They were never afraid of trying something new, whether that meant new modes or huge map changes or just full-on overhauls to the game itself. It became this game that was maybe not made for everybody, but anybody could play it. And it was a huge reason that Sony and other platforms finally gave in on crossplay. It lowered the hardware barrier by proving a massive multiplayer game could run on nearly any piece of hardware. And while I'm not exactly thrilled with how much they have normalized live service, they avoided pay to win right from the start. They always kept it to monetization on cosmetics only. And they also set a standard on how much free content a game should offer players when it's a free-to-play game. But the sad truth of the matter is that the games industry just never learned the right lessons from Fortnite. Investors and executives just saw the money that they were making, and they just spent billions of dollars chasing their profits instead of trying to understand what made it work. A game this influential, this dominant, was just treated like it was something that was untouchable, a machine that would just keep printing money.
oh fuck, I forgot they have fucking Marvel fucking IP in this goddamn. I literally forgot about that. They got DC in here too as well. Oh my god, the amount of money they had to spend or so in this game.
Forever. So these guys convinced themselves that this was the model that they needed to follow,
Freaking
the
Gears
safest
of
bet for the business,
War.
the success that every studio should try to copy. And now that illusion is finally starting to crack. Now, it was only just a couple weeks ago that Epic announced a roughly 15% increase to V-Bucks, the Fortnite in-game currency. The explanation they gave was that the cost of running Fortnite has gone up and that they needed help raising money to pay the bills. At the time, this just kind of felt like vague posting, but then just 2 weeks later, Epic would announce that they were laying off 1,000 employees and trying to cut another $500 million in operating costs because far fewer players are playing Fortnite. I had to do a double take on this because I thought this was Ubisoft or something like that. The New York Times reported on this in an article titled, Epic Games Lays Off 1,000 Employees Citing Fortnite Slump. They write, the video game company Epic Games is laying off more than 1,000 employees, it said on Tuesday, citing a drop in the amount of time that people are spending playing Fortnite. The downturn in...
I assume, right, if you get the licensings for this game, right, and I assume this is how it works, right? When you get the licensings for the song or an IP in general, right? You get it for a certain amount of years, right? But then, like, if you want to refresh it, you have to pay it again, don't you? You have to pay it again, right? For them to keep using it over and over and over again. Isn't that how it basically works? My question is, when those contracts end for those specific IPs for the game, are they going to refresh it, question mark? I don't think they will, actually, to be honest. I don't think they actually will refresh those.
Fortnite engagement that started in 2025 means that we're spending significantly more than we are making. And we have to make major cuts to keep the company funded, Tim Sweeney, the company's chief executive, wrote in a blog post. This layoff, together with over $500 million of identified cost savings in contracting, marketing, and closing some open roles, puts us in a more stable place. The cut represents about 20% of the workforce at Epic Games, a company spokeswoman said. It was the second time in recent years that the company, which is based in North Carolina, had announced major job cuts. In 2023, Epic Games laid off about 830 employees, or about 16% of its workforce, citing lower profit margins for Fortnite. "I'm sorry we're here again," Sweeney wrote in his blog post. Some of the challenges Epic Games is facing are problems for the wider video game industry. Sweeney wrote, "Slower growth, weaker spending, a drop in sales for new video game consoles compared to the previous generation of consoles, and games competing for time against other increasingly engaging forms of entertainment."
Another engaging form of entertainment. Well, as an example, Dead by Daylight had a collab with Stranger Things a while back. When the licenses end, they made it so you can't buy the skins anymore. Of course, anyone who bought the skins before got to keep them. Ah, I see. Slower growth. Well, it's because like just how like this. I think this is also part of the equation too, right? Is because I assume like some of the people now are finally grown up or so, but they some of them don't have families and everything. Granted, because like it's going on a decline downwards, right? As in like uh people making families and everything like that, right? If I'm correct, right? It's going downwards, so not really many people are having not really having kids. So then those people aren't really playing Fortnite to begin with to, keep the cycle or keep this, keep the wheels spinning or so for Fortnite because they have no kids, they don't play Fortnite with them, so a drop in sales of new video game consoles. That is also true because they've also raised the prices for consoles, not just once, but 2 times specifically, and it makes it more expensive and is pushing out the people who are basically poor, and I guess somewhat in the middle class too as well, poor to middle. It's going to make it more difficult for them to get, the new consoles to play games and whatnot.
Despite Fortnite remaining one of the most successful games in the world, we've had challenges delivering consistent Fortnite magic with every season. We're only in the early stages of returning to mobile and optimizing Fortnite for the world's billions of smartphones, Sweeney wrote. Now, I'm not sure what
They're making this into a mobile game? I see. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get, if they're trying to do that or so, right? They want to get the whales in their ecosystem so they can keep funneling and keep funding all of these collaborations and everything.
console sales have to do with less people playing Fortnite, a game that you could quite literally play on just about any single device. But he's not wrong about the game struggling to keep up with that Fortnite magic. There was a bump back with that Star Wars crossover they had with the AI Darth Vader that everybody was trying to get to say increasingly deranged shit. But outside of moments like that, the seasonal content just hasn't had the same pull or even the same baseline level of quality. Chapter 7 had a long list of issues: frequent crashes, control problems, movement problems, invisible players, a map design that made it harder to navigate, so people really couldn't see any of the new points of interest that they put into it. And that drop in quality has shown up pretty quick. Circana's Matt Piscatella reported that PlayStation users, who make up 35% of active players, and Xbox users, who make up
Wow.
31%, saw their playtime fall from 21 hours and 19 hours in 2025 to 16 hours and 15 hours, respectively. That is a massive drop, and it
Well, if I have to take a guess here, right? Are we talking about like just recently, right? Yeah, just recently, because this is what, March 24th, 2026? Everything is more expensive, and I assume people don't have enough time to play video games. Maybe some of them have a second job or something like that, that keeps them busy. They don't have time to play video games now. Maybe they're out touching grass now this day. Maybe they are, maybe they're getting into a different medium because, at this point now video games are pricing their gouge pricing out the lower end completely.
reflects the game not only losing time, but also attention and momentum. So what's behind all of this? Well, funny you ask, because it seems like the titan that helped set the trend for live service games has now become the trend chaser themselves. Fortnite has lost a lot of attention to Roblox, and in response to this, Epic has shifted their entire focus and strategy towards user-generated content instead of their own content. which makes their own content suffer as a result of it. Now, creators can go in and they can make their own games and they can monetize those games through cosmetic revenue sharing, something that Tim Sweeney has said has already grown into a $400 million economy. The problem is that those creator earnings are tied directly to where that player is spending their time, whether that's in the core game or in a user-generated experience or a mix of both. So while yes, it is creating revenue, it's also cutting directly into Fortnite's own ecosystem and their own money. This is essentially
Damn. So when they made this create when because they were trying to copy Roblox, right? Because Roblox is this massive or so because they got super massive with all the money and everything, with all the creativity. Now Fortnite chased Roblox because they're the ones who set the trend for battle royales, and then everyone else followed. But now the big dog himself was threatened by Roblox and decided to chase Roblox, and now it's biting them back in the ass because it's conflicting with their ecosystem, with the whole creative part of their side compared to their Fortnite thing.
money that these guys would have been making on their own, but now they're just giving a cut to these creators to hopefully try to grow into something like Roblox. Now, while losing players and playtime is obviously going to hurt this company, this is still not the real root of their problems. The problem that they have is actually the one that's eating the rest of the industry alive right now, where they were successful, but they just did not build themselves to stay successful. They built themselves to overextend. I mean, even after cutting 1,000 employees, Epic is still a company with over 4,000 developers split across Unreal Engine and Fortnite, a game that under no circumstances should require that much overhead to be able to sustain itself. And now, on top of that, Epic has also torched billions of dollars in their lawsuits with Apple and Google, something that I view as an objectively good deed to society. I will give them that because both of these companies were and largely still are running effective monopolies on their storefronts, but this is a company that is spending increasingly more money, upwards of $4.2 billion a year now,
I
to run
puta Jesus oh my god.
a single game, a single engine, and a single storefront. And if I had to guess which probably cost them the most, well, it's probably their war with Steam. For years now, Epic has tried and failed to compete with Steam, and Sweeney can go online and he can cry about fairness all he wants, but he is the one that is funding
Yeah,
exclusives. He is
that's what I'm saying. Or so yeah, oh yeah, I forgot about that. They also paid for like exclusivity for their games. The problem is like they made a launcher, but their launcher is just not that great compared to Steam's launcher. Steam's launcher is just so much better. They didn't even bother like innovating it. They didn't bother adding any updates to the launcher. Hell, fuck, dude. I bet you right now there's not even much you could do on that goddamn launcher compared to how it is on Steam.
the one funding free games. He is the one trying to corner a market by cornering its players, by backing a platform whose main strategy has been to give away free games while still missing some of the most basic features that people actually use on Steam.
Exactly.
They have basically just been handing out free money to developers and free games to players, and neither one of those has translated into any kind of
But that's also not part of the reason why they're losing so much money. If you look at everything else, they got the Street Fighter collaboration in here.
loyalty from their storefront. From 2019 to 2024, Epic Game Store grew by 173%, but their third-party revenue only grew by 1.6%. People would show up for the free games and then leave. They just do not want to spend money there. Epic really is no different than the rest of the games.
That's the reason why, because Steam is getting that passive revenue from their Steam launcher because people are buying games off of their launcher specifically, and they get a specific cut from it. While when it comes to Epic, they don't really have that. They don't get passive income from their games because their launcher is just pretty dog shit, to be honest.
History, and these are the people that everybody's been trying to follow. These are the same problems that's been eating away at everybody. They took their eye off the ball. They stopped focusing on the community and the success that they already had. They stopped making other games. They started chasing somebody else's bag, whether that was Roblox or Steam. Doesn't really matter. Now you got this company that's chasing two dragons at the exact same time, and they're not going to catch either one of them. They're burning tons of cash, and they should have just stayed focused on protecting what they already built. But now here they are, falling apart at the first sign of trouble. I am shocked more people aren't talking about this. This is such an important development. This is such a massive deal. I don't think people understand just how valuable of a lesson this is for the rest of the industry. I mean, for
At
years now,
30% cut
we've
seems
had
like a lot
executives and
now.
investors talk about
Yes.
Fortnite like it's some golden goose, like it's a cheat code for the games industry. If they just copied it, if they just did what they did, if they just monetized it and
Exactly.
built it the way that they built their game, then they would be able to make so much money that they would become immune to their own problems. They would just be able to spend past their mistakes because there's always going to be more money on the other side.
Yes.
Fortnite floundering, it losing relevance right now, this was always going to happen. This is just a
Yes.
reality for every game that will ever come out because
That is also true. They're not live service. Live service. That's the word I was looking for the last time in that one video. Um, Live service games don't have a longevity. To be honest, that would be the day or so when I hear Fortnite is shutting down.
well, things just
I'm gonna be
lose relevance
so
over time.
happy. To
Less
be
people
honest.
become interested in it. It's not really the fault of the game in some cases, though I definitely think it's actually the fault of their game right now, but you know, them losing money, them losing relevance right now, it shows the industry that live service, no matter how successful, cannot make up for bad spending, for
Yeah.
lack of quality, for ignoring the
To be
audience
honest,
that
for me specifically, I've never liked Fortnite. Fortnite was the one that basically killed the gaming scene because all of the other companies, especially in the Western side, wanted to chase that specific trend. They wanted to chase Fortnite. They want that revenue. They want that money. What Fortnite has, that's what they want specifically, and it pissed me the fuck off. And that's why we had slop after slop after slop of fucking live service games and shitty ass live service games as well. Fucking oh, dude, I'm just so fucking happy.
you already have. This is one of the biggest games in the world, proving that they can't even get away with it. These companies do not know how to protect their audiences. Either that or they're just not interested in it. They're way too busy trying to chase somebody else's. And, now you have one of the biggest games in the entire
FGO
world
will
that
outlive
just got caught
Fortnite.
doing the exact same thing. That should be a
They're not
warning.
dead yet. Depending on how many players they lost,
Like
though.
there's no other way to cut that. The question is whether or not this is something that the industry will hear, whether or not this is something that they can recover from, whether or not, let's say they did, let's say it does convince them, whether they even
Don't
have enough time
underestimate
to be
the
able to go
FGO
back on
whales. I
this.
saw that video
According to
of
one
that one
analyst,
whale spending
they're already
absurd
out of time.
money.
In the last half of that New York Times article, they pivoted to a market analyst where they write Juice Van Duren, a market analyst and professor at New York University, said that Fortnite must compete for attention not only with popular games like Roblox, but also with social media companies like TikTok and short form videos on YouTube and other platforms. Its problems, he says, are part of a broader shift in the industry, which is growing more in China than it is in the United States. We're witnessing in real time the decline of American cultural dominance in gaming, Van Duren said. One of these landmarks, like Fortnite, is starting to feel the burn as the consumer entertainment industry is slowly moving from west to east in its financial gravity point.
That is also true because the Eastern Asian side, when it comes to video games, have been making banger after banger.
Oh man, I don't think I have ever felt more vindicated. I am outclassing a New York University professor. How about that, guys? Talk about a step up in the world. I have been screaming about this for the better part of 2 years on YouTube. And this is really getting to the heart of the two biggest problems for the Western games industry. First, that they can't hold on to the audiences that they already have. And second, more and more of those audiences are starting to drift east. Now, I've
Yep.
talked about this in other videos, but this situation has only gotten worse year after year. Honestly, I don't even know if I should really even call it a problem at this point because us players have definitely been benefiting from a lot of this competition in a huge way.
Exactly.
But Eastern publishers have slowly but surely been chipping away at the player bases of these giant Western companies for years now. And it's gotten to the point where the foundation is starting to crack and these guys are falling through.
Well, that's what happened when the Western side decided to chase trends and all, and plus on top of that, you have the woke shit on top of that too as well. You got all of that, while the Eastern Asian side of video games in general know exactly what their gamers want. They know exactly because they are gamers themselves, while the Western company are not really gamers anymore. They don't know what gamers want. They don't really know what's happening in the actual gaming water scene. And the funny thing about it is, like, there was a video specifically talking about it that China like I said, I'll repeat it multiple times. I will repeat this multiple times that China is basically making a one-to-one copy of the video game industry in the Western side, but just better, just way better than the Western side. They saw an opportunity of what the Western side has been doing for many years, and now the Eastern Asian side has started to catch up, and now they're starting to sweep up those player bases and those people that actually want good video games.
Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples because it shows just how much things have changed in just a relatively short amount of time. If I asked you guys, who do you think the king of open world RPGs are? I would guess that most of you guys would probably pipe
Eastern
up with
Asian.
From Software, just because of Elden Ring. Hell, people who don't even play their games would probably assume it's them. Then, for me, at least right behind that, it would be stuff like Neo 2 and 3, and now Crimson Desert, which just kind of came out of nowhere and seems to just get better and better the more that you play it. But rewind that clock about 10 years, and the first name that comes to mind out of anybody's mouth is going to be Bethesda. They were once the defining studio
That's
in
true.
the industry.
That is so true. Bethesda was one of the best open world games back in its heyday, but now not anymore, to be honest. You know, they've kind of fallen off.
Now they're a company that takes 12 years to release a game that is so far off the mark that the only thing people can offer these guys is skepticism or a bunch of videos making fun of them on YouTube. Now, the funny thing is that I don't even think that Starfield is the main problem here. The real problem is that it took them 12 years to make that shitty game.
Yep.
In that same time that it took Bethesda to make one game, an entirely new generation of players has grown up. A whole new customer base came in barely knowing these guys other than just being the studio that keeps re-releasing Skyrim. And in that same stretch of time, we got Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and Elden Ring. We got The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077. We got Neo 1, 2, and 3. We have a long list of RPGs that came in, took mindshare, took attention, and built fandoms of their own. And if you zoom out across the entire industry, outside of maybe first-person shooters and sports games, the Western industry has damn near surrendered every single genre to Eastern studios. They didn't just lose relevance. These guys gave it away years ago. They stopped innovating. They kept making the same thing. They took forever to be able to make their games, and they abandoned genres outright. And
The only reason why they're taking so long or so, remember, right? There are some devs behind the scenes that they just kind of like, I guess you can say they have more juniors compared to like basically, you know, the more senior devs, the more later on devs and everything. It's like they don't have that much knowledge and they take forever to complete something because there was that one developer who literally asked a certain like a junior developer to ask him, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to program this AI or so, this and this." And apparently, the junior developer said it would take him 2 weeks, 2 weeks to make it, while he said it shouldn't take you 2 weeks. It should only take you this afternoon to do it. And that pretty much says a lot of things of what's kind of been happening behind the scenes, at least in the western, you know, western side of like development compared to Eastern Asian. Like I said, man, they have their specific mentality is smaller efficiency, while the Western side, bigger, bloated, means we can make better games. But like at the end of the day, too many cooks in the kitchen. It takes a long time to finish something. Rome was a build in a day. Guys was making something good. I don't know about that, to be honest. But like I said, this Western mentality or so that bigger means better, it's not. Because remember, right? They said literally the guy from the Overwatch, Jeff or so, literally said, if you hire these many people, we can also make that much money as well. Because Fortnite had a certain amount of developers on their game and they were making insane amount of money. You know? That's the only reason why. And it's so funny or so that when you start comparing the Eastern Asian side compared to the Western side, you can see the difference in efficiency when it comes to products in general, especially when it comes to their gaming side. My opinion is leadership and the dev skills cause remember even Crimson Desert went through hell because of the leading man change. If I remember correctly, isn't Crimson Desert in Korea though? Like it's in Korea. Like they're the developers in Korea, no? Let me take a look real quick. Let me see, where's the studio? Yeah, South Korea. So they're from South Korea. The origins is South Korea. The developer is Prolibis. So it does kind of like, that does basically say, that does say a lot in general.
Here they did that, more player interest just consolidated somewhere else. Now China is entering into the picture in a way big way. And all this is doing is just making things worse for the
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you want to know something? They're more efficiently, I'm still going to say this, leadership is at fault to some degree, but I am still blaming some of the devs in the Western side because of how incompetent they can be. Let me remind you, Dubstep, they were measuring how tall to make a certain building for a World of Warcraft expansion, okay? For like a building, just a fucking building. And they grab different buildings to measure how tall they need to make their building, okay? Let me remind, I will bring this shit up again, okay? You have literally Western devs talking about politics. They're bringing in their politics. You have to tiptoe around them specifically in a certain manner. Also, let's not forget real quick that literally the Western side had this weird occult type of thing where they were talking about blaming white people because of their struggles and everything. Basically, like trying to outdo each other of who had the worst struggle in life, okay? They're literally not being efficient enough in their work, okay? Let me be honest here. I have to say this, okay? There are some things that I know or so that question me sometimes. I'd be like, now I feel like I'm questioning my stance here where I'm saying leadership now to some degree. To some degree, okay? But I still think the devs are more eyebrowsing. Yes, they were stupid with the building, but they got good leaders as to say cut that shit out. Well, yeah, exactly. But you got to be you can't be honest. You like I said specifically, these devs, they keep hiring these devs. And remember, the Western side had this mentality that you had to hire people based off the color of their skin, okay? Not by how good efficiently they worked or how good their skills are. They had to pick them up or so because of the color of their skin, okay? Let's be honest here. There were so many amalgamations in the Western side when it came to them making video games and their agendas and what they were targeting for, you know? Like I said, when you look back and read through history and look at everything and you start piecing everything together, everything kind of starts making sense now. And you understand, you're just kind of like, like I said, the devs are not 100% innocent. Okay. They're definitely not 100% innocent. Okay. They still hold at fault to some degree after looking back at everything that I talked about or so. And I'm just kind of like, wait, you might be right, actually. That's very interesting, actually. Especially when a dev or so, right? They had a seniority that told them that they can do the same thing that he can do in an afternoon while that person takes 2 weeks. He bitched and complained and moaned that the manager wanted him to do it this afternoon. And then they had to settle with it, and then he did it, and it would take him a week. Like I said, it's very interesting to be kind of seeing that these devs are somewhat still responsible, why the efficiency is just not very that great in their side, like on their side of making video games, okay? Like the guy made a VOD or so, literally explaining like his experience in video game development. Straight up, like no joke. You can search it up yourself.
West. Now you have this audience with an enormous scale. They have low labor costs and a market that honestly seems a lot more interested in just focusing on gameplay rather than all of the extra baggage that Western publishers just keep piling onto their games. And that is a serious threat to these companies that are already moving way too slow and spending way too much money. I mean, guys, just look at the most beloved games this year so far. You got Neo 3, Resident Evil 9, Crimson Desert, Pokemon Pokopia, Mugenics, Slay the Spire 2, Monster Hunter Stories. Two of those games are Western. They're both indie games. The rest are all Eastern. These guys are so cooked. Now, what makes matters even worse is that much of this industry's growth has been coming from Chinese players, people who, by and large, just do not care about Western games, largely because they probably can't even run them. Go look at their Steam reviews. Half of them are just about performance. But when something does
That is also true, but we talked about it. It's 50-50. It's 50 on the engine and 50 on the devs because the devs are lazy and they make the engine do everything for them and they don't optimize the game itself.
hit with that audience, it explodes. Black Myth Wukong sold over 10 million copies in just 3 days. Slay the Spire 2 sold 3 million copies in 3 days, and 43% of those sales came from China. And if you want to see where the center of gravity is shifting, go look at the most played games in China right now. Counter-Strike, Dota 2, PUBG. That is the top 3 played games on Steam. I don't
Damn, freaking Slay the Spire is still up there. My opinion, there's nothing wrong with hiring these days. You just have to give them their trading arc for sure. They got faults, but I place more blame on the business leadership and culture. Look at the business culture in the West and East, for example. The East culture can produce better leadership, and employees' culture is set from top. But remember, right? The guys in the business suit is what literally fucks over the leadership. Remember, with Jeff Kaplan specifically, he was forced from the higher ups, from the higher ups specifically, that he was forced specifically, if they don't do a certain thing, they gotta lay off people. And it's the people in the business suit that are calling the hot shots around here compared to the leaderships of the actual like gaming scene in general. Like, yeah, you have some fuck ups here and there. Take a look at Mind's Eye, for example. That's also like, if I remember correctly, that was like what, one of the leaderships for the GTA game or so, or from GTA, for the GTA dev team or so, and he decided to make his own thing, and then, well, Lord and behold, you have that, right? But then you also have the polar opposite when it came to the Ubisoft developers, right? That made their own studio and made Expedition 33. Yeah, but they also have some piece in saying or so of what they want from their, what they, because at the end of the day they want the money, right? So I assume they have to set something specifically while the developers show up something. I assume they have to have some certain amount of input specifically when it comes to their games in general. So let's take a look at this real quick. When it comes to let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this. So yes, the people in the suits, the corporate executives, publishers, and investors often have significant and sometimes final say on the video game, particularly in large-scale AAA games. Development, while creative developers, designers, artists build the game mechanics, the world executives often control the budget, the timeline, the monetization, the strategy, which directly influences the final product. Here's the breakdown. So the final authority of the funding is the people providing the money often have the final say on the game's direction, particularly when it comes to prioritizing profitability above all else. Monetization and features. Executives frequently make decisions to include live service elements, microtransactions, and loot boxes. Even the developers are against them. For example, decisions to abandon PvP in favor of other more profitable models often come to a corporate leadership. rush timelines. Suits often get set rigid, ambitious release dates, which can result in game being released in a buggy or incomplete state as they prioritize securing revenue and meeting shareholders' expectations. The marketing-driven changes. Publishers can force creative changes to align with marketing demands, which is altering content to be more marketable to a wider audience or changing the game's art style. Work for high power or higher power. In many scenarios, the publishers owns the intellectual properties, the IP, giving them the legal authority to dictate the development and the use of in-house or third-party studios to make the game they want. So when they have less to say, the indies and the smaller studio developments, the suits have less control, and developers often have more freedom to keep their original vision. However, as soon as the project requires a larger publisher for funding or marketing, the autonomy generally decreases, and that's basically how that works in general. Let me see. So, and then if we look at this up, okay, so so in the Eastern development, which is Japan, China, Korea, currently leads the critical acclaim and innovations with the hit of Elden Ring, Black Myth Wukong, prioritizing engaged gameplay, unique aesthetics, and efficiency development over high budgets. While the Western developers excel in massive photorealistic cinematic experiences, but often face stagnation or layoffs. So let's see. So the strengths often lauded in superiority gameplay mechanics, unique artistic visions, and focus for fun over realism, and dominates in the action adventure RPG and creative niche turn global titles. So currently, the experience of the surge of the AAA products, like Black Myth Wukong philosophies, focus on strong stylistic characters and are often avoided forced agendas, creating more tailored experience. So, when the Western developers, which is North America and Europe, the strengths are known for creating massive photorealistic open world games, high fidelity graphics, and immersive cinematic narratives like GTA and The Last of Us. Trends often struggle with their high development costs, creative stagnation, and a focus of live service models. Philosophy aim for realism and mainstream appeal, though this can lead to a repetitive gameplay loop and some genres such as sports. Well, the key difference is efficiency. Eastern studios generally produce high quality games with lower budgets, avoiding the massive layoffs seen in the West. Innovation. Japan developers are frequently recognized for revitalizing genres and maintaining a high standard, such as, Breath of the Wild. Focus on the focus is while Eastern developers are praised for game centric, sometimes quirky titles, Western developers excel at setting a specific tone and creative blockbuster experiences, which it's that it's that mentality or so of the Western side. Everything's just gotta be bigger, gotta be better. Ultimately, the best games depends on the preference and the recent industry trends now. So the Eastern studio is holding a slight edge in quality to cost ratio and critical receptions. Honestly, we just roll back, we literally turn around back in a circle or so every single time. The Western side always wants to make these like big, photorealistic cinematic experiences and all this other stuff, while when it comes to the Eastern Asian side, they don't really do that. They more go for efficiency, art style, stylized type of game and everything like that. So it's very interesting to kind of see that it's still that specific mentality that the Eastern Asian has compared to the West. And at the end of the day, it is culture. It is definitely culture that is definitely showing in the forefront but it's still kind of funny that we just go back in a circle again where the West wants everything big. They want a bigger AI language model. They want a bigger, food, bigger cars, bigger this, bigger budgets on video games because they think they can turn a profit with it. And well, Lord and behold, it's like a cycle that just keeps repeating itself over and over and over again. The Western side has lost its touch when it comes to like actually like good video games.
Think that people are taking this seriously. This is not just about sales. This isn't about missing a quarter or having a disappointing launch. These guys are losing the habit. They are losing the default position that they used to have for entire genres. That's the part that people are not fully processing here. When players stop looking at you first, when your name stops carrying the same weight, when you have new generations of players that are growing up to be excited about somebody else's game instead of your own, you're not fixing that with a trailer, a patch, or a live service game. You are irrelevant. Western publishers have now spent years trying to engineer success from the outside in. More money, more developers, more management, more systems, more monetization, more market research, more trend chasing, more how do we capture this audience, more how do we increase our engagement. Everything is built around extracting a bigger result.
Yeah, but you want to know something? If we go back in time before Fortnite, all the leaderships were good. You know, all the leaderships when those games came out back then or so, back in the day, they were all good. Did you have some stinkers here and there? Of course you did, but in general, like in generality or so, they were the massive powerhouse when they made games. Okay, because it's a bunch of dudes who literally worked in their mom's basement or everything like that, like bunch of nerdy guys who made video games for gamers because they were gamers themselves. Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. And then now later down the line, now you have a conglomeration of like mixture of stuff in the pot or so that caused this issue of why the Western developers or so are going downhill. Mass layoffs, fucking over bloated budgets on video games, and all of this, just specifically just going downwards on the Western side compared to the Eastern side, they're going upwards. Because remember, right? Let me take a look at this. So they're from Sweden specifically. Okay. Yeah, because they got the developers from DICE. Yeah, the former CEO of DICE, which he was a veteran, and they moved them over to Arc Raiders, to the Arc Raiders team. Yeah, but if they have no problem in the gaming scene specifically, right? That means they're hiring people that don't really play much video games to begin with. And remember, on top of this too as well, they were not hiring, but they gave more opportunity in educational system to females compared to males.
Instead of just creating a stronger product. So what comes,
Like I said, there is a conglomeration of a mixture of why it's failing and why it's going downhill specifically for the Western. When before a certain time frame, you had guys making video games for guys, and they know what their gamers wanted. Okay, this is the same thing what China is, right? Or just Eastern Asian in general, right? The whole thing itself, these people played these games and they understand what gamers want, and now they're making games for gamers. Now when it comes to Western side, you have agendas, you have politics in games, you have political people funding games in general, you have some weird stuff in games in general, you know
comes out on the other side is just going to feel hollow again and again. Expensive, polished, maybe technically impressive, sure, but ultimately hollow because you guys do not
Who are making those people decisions at the top? It could be the person who is woke at the end of the day. Have you ever thought of that at the end of the day? It could be someone to be like, oh, like I said, they would hire people by the color of their skin sometimes, not by how, like, if you had a white guy who was so good at his work, but then you have like a different colored skin person, they would hire this colored skin person a lot more compared to the white guy. Because remember, right? They hate white guys.
not care about the product itself. You can feel when a game is built by people that are trying to build something that players love, and you can feel when something is built by people that are trying to secure a return. Meanwhile, a lot of these games that are actually pulling players right now understand a much simpler truth. Just make a good game, make a fun game, make something with a strong identity, a clear fantasy. Momentum really matters right now. Make something that people are going to be immediately excited to talk about. That's what you want to do. Not every single Eastern game is doing this, not every indie game is doing this, but enough of these guys are doing it that it's becoming impossible to ignore. Players want a game that feels like they know what they are rather than these games that come out that are still trying to figure out who they're being made for. They want games that commit. They want games that are confident in themselves. And in the West, for a long time now, that's just not been the case. That's why Fortnite stumbling matters so much right now.
Hey,
This
good
was
boy.
the untouchable one. This was the golden goose that every single executive treated like it was the blueprint. Everybody wanted one of these games. And now that even that is cracking, even that Fortnite is now proving that you can't outrun weak direction, overspending, and a drifting audience forever, that should be the lesson. These guys need to learn from it. You cannot fix this industry by chasing the next dragon. You can only fix it by remembering why players showed up. Epic is essentially just doing the exact same thing as every single other game publisher right now. They're just chasing everybody else's tails. They're running out of ideas. Either that or they are just so fixated
Yeah, but that means specifically that, like, when it comes to like the Eastern Asian stuff, right? They understand specifically what gamers want, while the Western doesn't know what gamers want. They don't know what gamers want. They really don't, because they hire the wrong type of people to in those, and then those people work up to those positions, right? So they bring those people, right? There was a time and point where developers were good, and then they got bigger, right? But then they had to hire certain people to fit in those specific roles, and then some of those people worked upwards. HR department, marketing, and department and CIO, and the company goes public. Investors want stock prices to grow. CIO orders to hire more people and expand, and so on till it can't anymore. So it's getting fat and you're getting bigger, but not in a healthier way. That's the thing itself. It's like when it comes to just the Western side, bigger is always better. They always want to put everything all in the one basket or so, and see if they can get the revenue in, and unfortunately it doesn't really peak, and then it goes down, and then they start laying off people, and well, lord and behold, you rinse and repeat multiple times because they get this over bloated budget. When it comes to the games, I just feel like definitely there might be some corruption that's happening in the gaming scene when it comes to this. It could be, because it's just kind of like, where's all this spending money going from for a half-baked game with sometimes half-baked mechanics? One of the best examples is High Guard to bring back. High Guard has like, it had like a good chunk of like budget or so in it. But the question is, where did all the money go? Where did it disappear? Nowadays it felt like Western devs just throwing shit to the wall to see what sticks to go with it. No, they just kind of like just chase trends in general. Like they see Fortnite making the biggest splash in general. Well, that's why I say it matters more to who is at the top than who are the dev teams. Always need a good captain. Yeah, but if you have shitty crewmates as well, at the end of the day, you also got shitty crew people at the end of the day. Like what do you expect? You have some really bad people as well on the dev team when you make a dev team. Not everyone's gonna be on the same boat at the end of the day. You got some people who are always gonna be opposing you in a very bad manner.
it on somebody else's money, on somebody else's audience that they just can't get it off their mind. So the only thing that they focus on is Well, user generated content, retention, metrics,
That is
whatever it
true as
is. We have to
well.
think about the attention economy. No, no, you don't. You need to think about trying
I'm saying I'm gonna put my foot down on you, Dubstep. I'm giving 50% to devs and 50% of the higher up suit guys, the actual people way up high. They're not even devs. There's the guys in suits. They're the ones who are literally demanding and telling what the developers are. But at the same time, there's some developers or so who really shouldn't be developers. But then it trickles down also into other specific parts of how those specific people got into that. You know. Now, is it all developers that are shitty? No. At the end of the day, there are good developers that actually do care about wanting to make good actual video games, but unfortunately, they're fucking shackled to their fucking desk or so to these corporations, and unfortunately, you just have to do it that way.
to make a better game. This is what I mean about these guys being focused on trying to extract a bigger result.
Not unless, not unless they can get you fired for calling someone the wrong pronouns, making a wrong joke, doing something, doing something that is harmless, but it seems wrong towards them. They can get you fired. Remember, toxic positivity was a thing in the gaming industry in the Western side. I'm just saying.
Rather than just trying to make a better product. Funny thing is, better products sell. When you look across the industry, do you look at a lot of these games that are just absolutely crushing it right now and also crushing our wallet as a result of it? The reason why these games are doing so well is because that is their only fixation. They only care about trying to make the best game that they probably can. They're not worried about trying to reach for somebody else's audience or somebody else's money. No, these guys realize that that is a byproduct. You reach that goal by getting to it through the audience.
The only reason why I say that specifically is because I had a certain friend of mine who is one of the lead developers for art stuff or so. So he has a crew, right? Through all his years or so of doing like, you know, being like you know, doing art for video games and then becoming a lead designer for a lead artist or so, right? You have to be careful what you're talking about and stepping on those things. He had very much a lot of experience and talked to very interesting people that number one is like, why are you even here to begin with kind of type of people? You know? For God's sakes, you had that one person or so who was complaining and bitching that he was working on literally on Halo, on the weapons, like the guns itself, and he didn't like working on weapons or so on the Halo. So it's just kind of like, so then why the fuck are you even there to begin with? You know? I'm like, when you see specifically, especially when you had that one developer from Avowed specifically, right? Where he wanted to trigger Elon Musk or so because of the pronouns, right? The pronouns for the video games. It's just kind of like you just kind of like raise an eyebrow specifically on these people. It's just kind of like these people shouldn't be where they are right now in making video games. These aren't the type of people that I would trust personally for them to make video games.
That you have and through the success that you find. It's all about just making a better product with no detours. The reason why a lot of these Eastern games have been doing so well over the past couple of years is I think it's because these guys just don't have the time to be able to worry about anything else.
Yes.
A lot of these companies that are coming in are either fresh to the industry or they're breaking into new genres or new markets. So what ends up happening is they don't really care about things like retention or anything like that. The only thing that they care about is whether or not they can get you to show up. They'll figure out everything else after the fact. So that's what they're building these games for. They're building these games so you at least show up. And I think that's kind of one of the most important lessons of all is that a lot of these companies got away from building games that people show up for. Kind of, you know, need us to be there
Western
first
are a lot
before
more
you start trying to take
softer.
our money, right?
They are.
I don't know, man. I don't know if any of these guys are going to be able to learn from this. It's like a two-sided thing. Like, one, are they actually ever going to be able to learn from any of these issues? And then two, is there actually enough time for a lot of these guys to be able to do so? I think you know, after all the layoffs that we've seen over the past couple of years, I think that there's going to be something more drastic that's going to hit probably soon. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I don't know who it's all going to hit. It's probably going to hit.
Also, at the same time, don't you remember dubstep where all those developers were out in the park screaming or so? You remember that? Do you remember that specific? I do remember that. I don't know which development team it was. Again, who hired them, Co? Remember in the E's, they are asking people to draw live in front of them in interviews to see if they truly got talent and not talent in prompts. That's art. That's a completely different thing. I'm just talking about specifically that, like, when it comes to Western and Eastern, who has their head correctly connected to their shoulders? Eastern Asian compared to the Western side. There was a time or so where Western devs were good because they were the pioneers. They were the first ones who literally set the trend themselves. Now they're falling behind because the development takes forever. There is no there's no actual like conciseness in some of their specific over bloated budget, too many people cooking in the kitchen at the end of the day, and it's literally the higher guys ups in the suits that make all of the final decisions for everything. They're the ones who fund the money to these people. At the end of the day, you kind of like, when you compare the Eastern Asian to Western or so, and the things that I've learned about behind the scenes or so from some friends of mine that I know, you start kind of like raising an eyebrow to be like, okay, so the devs aren't 100% innocent in all of this. Okay, they're not 100% innocent. And if you're trying to defend them that they're 100% innocent, I will debate you on that and against you that they're not 100% innocent.
Basically every single one of these companies, they've been taking so many financial losses, massive financial losses for a while, that it's too much to ignore. It's too much for their shareholders to ignore. And you're just going to see this mass displacement of talent. You're going to see people just all over the place. A ton of indie studios, probably some of these Eastern studios are also going to pick up some of these guys as well. It's not like there aren't talented developers at some of these Western
You
companies.
get
Just the problem
banished
is
into
they
the
just have
basement. Now I'm gonna take
horrible
his mom.
leadership.
Is what I'm gonna
Really,
do.
some of the worst, most misguided leadership in the entire industry.
I'm gonna
So
take his mom.
I don't know, man. Live service is definitely not the answer. That's not to say that live service games can't be good or that you can't make one. The problem is that when you think it's the answer to all of your problems, you need to have a better plan than
There's
that.
a mentality
A lot of these guys don't.
when you're making a live service
Anyway,
game.
hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of what's going on here. Are you celebrating the fall of a giant?
I'm
I
so
am
happy that
kind
Fortnite
of.
is crackling, to be honest. I'm super happy. I am very happy. It's finally well deserved. It fucking deserves to freaking die because, well, I want it to die in my personal opinion because it definitely destroyed it. I'm saying it got bad because of the top. Because, for example, you got employees with the woke crap and are causing problems. Why are they not around? A good leader would fire them or give them a final warning at that shit and leave it at that home. You do know. Let me remind you this every single time, Dubstep. I'm gonna remind you this every single time. Most of those studios are based in California. Okay, let me remind you this. California has a different breed of people, okay? All right? It all circles back to fucking California, all right? I will bring in California in this goddamn conversation because California is what ruined what the video game industry has become at this very moment. Over bloated budget, paying people insane amount of money. That specific part of the territory, literally straight up, no joke, they have to pay those developers absurd amount of money where you can get a couple of more people in the Eastern Asian side with that same revenue money compared to the Western side. Like I said specifically, it's a very interesting topic to be talking about here and there. Like I said, I can't talk about all of it, or else this VOD would be 2 hours long. So I can't do that. So we'll talk a little bit more afterwards. At the end of the day, it does stem to the issue of, LA is just a bad culture in general, plus LA just corrupts. Scrap, fix your region. They probably never will, to be honest, unfortunately. The only way that that region specifically will be fixed or so is that they change it. What is it? What they change it from what was it again? Oh yeah, a blue state to a red state. And maybe something can come to fruition, but like the problem is California has such a toxic like mentality over there that they have such a I don't know what the word is specifically that comes to mind or so, but they have this specific mentality themselves that always just doesn't rub you the right way.